This is Amy, and you're listening to the Talkin' Appalachian podcast. Hello, friends. This week, on Friday, May 2nd, will mark 96 years since a tornado came through Rye Cove, Virginia, and killed 12 students and a teacher in a 2-story, 10-room schoolhouse. Here in Central Appalachia, where this happened, the Carter family trio, who pretty much laid the foundation for today's country music, they lived nearby, and they recorded a ballad called The Cyclone of Rye Cove. So I'm writing a book about the ballad and the event, and I wanted to share a little bit of what I've written about it with you. If you're local, WCYB Channel 5 and Kristen Kwan came to Big Stone Gap and interviewed me about this, and they've been running a series all this week about the Cyclone of Rye Cove. My grandfather kept the Victrola in his wood shop, where it stood for years, covered in sawdust that snowed from his work table. I'm not sure why he kept it there, except that his house was small and already crowded with old things, meaningful things. The talking machine, as early phonographs were called, had belonged to his aunts, we say aunts in Southwest Virginia, never married sisters who lived in a little house on a dirt road near our own house along Long Hollow, Virginia. Inside its cupboard was a treasure trove of 78 RPM shellac records in their original sleeves and a rusty can of needles. The records speak to the range of music they loved, from Jimmie Rodgers to Doc Watson, and the deep scratches in some of them signal which ones they played most often. When the grandkids were around, on snow days, mostly, when school was out and Poppy couldn't work outside, he would come over to the house, he would insert the crank and wind the spring motor, which made the turntable spin. Then he'd lift the heavy tone arm and carefully position the needle on the record. The lonesome sounds of guitars and mandolins blended with the high crooning voices wafting from the speaker box had the power to send us back in time to the sisters' 1920s dark, cozy house with its low ceilings and a fire casting shadows on the walls. The talking machine sat in his wood shop until my husband and I bought our first house, a 1936 Federal with original woodwork and tall ceilings that felt hollow with the little furniture we owned. He decided it would look better there, where previous Victrola might have stood not far from the telephone cupboard built into the stairwell. And as the years passed, the Victrola was like an elder in our home, overseeing the growth of our family. We opened the lid to let our children peek inside, and we taught them how it functioned, just like Poppy had taught me. My kids, now teenagers, have since learned how to play some of these songs, some of these same songs that are tucked into the Victrola's cupboard. And if you got to see the episode that aired yesterday on Channel 5 News, my son Landon played the Cyclone of Rye Cove. Several years after Poppy's passing, I called an expert, Corbin Hazlett, a former student of mine and an acoustic artist who had recorded on the Orthophonic Joy album project. This was a collection recreating songs from the 1927 Bristol sessions, where the Carter family's career began. Hazlett was a graduate student at the time at ETSU's Bluegrass Music program, and he demonstrated how to clean and index the records as he told stories about the artists and the songs. We found that the sisters had particularly enjoyed the Carter family's music, collecting many of their records such as Wildwood Flower and Keep on the Sunny Side, but there were 2 copies of one particular record which seemed odd, 2 copies of a song A.P. Carter had written after one of the most tragic days in Virginia's history, the Cyclone of Rye Cove.
But now it's so silent and lone. When the cyclone appeared, it darkened the air, yet the lightning flashed over the sky. And the children all cried, don't take us away, and spare us to go back home.
By May of 1929, A.P. Carter and his wife Sarah and her cousin Maybelle were well into their recording careers. Their popularity had grown nationwide in a robust pre-Depression economy that gave folks the cash to splurge on records. In the years since 1927, when they first piled into AP's car and traveled over pocked and rutty roads to audition for Ralph Peer of the Victor Talking Machine Company in the now legendary Bristol sessions, the Carter family's records had sold in the hundreds of thousands. But the industry was hungry for more songs. Though their recording contract and income gave them the means to relocate, the Carters had decided to stay in their home community of Hiltons, Virginia, where ballads and Appalachian mountain tunes were plentiful. According to the book Will You Miss Me When I'm Gone? The Carter Family and Their Legacy in American Music, AP traveled around the region collecting songs and bringing them back to the studio, where the trio carved each song down to the required 3 minutes for recording. Mother Maybelle, who was mother to the legendary June Carter Cash, played her famous scratch on her guitar, her signature flat-picking style that's credited for being the foundation of bluegrass music. She and Sarah, playing the auto harp, sang with AP, in his words, basing it in from time to time. Demand was such that they sometimes recorded a staggering 20 songs in one session. By March of 1929, 2 months before the tragedy that would inspire AP's ballad, the Carters had recorded a dozen more. If you're interested in hearing more about the Rye Cove cyclone and you'd like to hear a handwritten letter written by one of the survivors in 1970, head on over to Talkin' Appalachian on Patreon and subscribe. And if you subscribe now, you'll get 50% off the Country Roads and Mountain People tiers. Make a good Mother's Day gift or Father's Day gift. Talkin' Appalachian on Patreon for bonus content and early access. Mountain children grow up hearing that tornadoes are rare because they can't traverse the hills as well as they can the plains. But on May 2nd, 1929, a clutch of funnel clouds descended like needles on records, cutting grooves along the mountain chain and into the Gulf Coast. Over 100 people were injured or killed in Tennessee, West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Rye Cove, Virginia, just 30 miles away from the Carters' home in Hiltons.